All right, so very good afternoon to all of you, our cherished viewers of Hot Issues, and welcome to another exciting edition of Hot Issues. So, following the purchase and assumption of UT Bank and Capital Bank by GCB Bank on Monday, many of you have been asking yourself questions, particularly for those of you who are shareholders of UT Bank. Well, this afternoon on Hot Issues, we have one man who'd actually answer all the questions you have if you are a shareholder and other issues bothering your mind on this purchase and assumption of UT Bank and Capital Bank by GCB Bank. My name is Winston Amwa, and this is Hot Issues. We go for a short break. When we return after this break, I'll introduce my guest, and then we get answers to those questions. All right, so welcome back from that short break, and thanks for staying with us. Now, my guest for this afternoon is a former Director General of the Securities and Exchanges Commission. They are the regulators of the Ghana Stock Exchange, so you understand why, if you are a shareholder, particularly of UT Bank, Dr. Edu Antwi. Good afternoon, sir, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I believe you're doing very well.
Yeah, by the grace of God.
Were you surprised when you heard of, the purchase and assumption of UT Bank and Capital Bank?
I wasn't that surprised because the Bank of Ghana has given some hint. We had a PwC launch banking survey 2016. I did last week. The governor of the Bank of Ghana was there, and in his speech, he mentioned that there were two banks that were struggling, and they were trying to help them, but giving them some time that it would not be too long for them to now come out with a decision if they are not able to do the needful. So when it came, it was like something was in the pipeline. But he never mentioned.
So were you surprised when you heard of UT Bank and Capital Bank?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not too surprised because it has been told that.
Yeah, it had been told of two banks, but you didn't know those banks.
Those banks.
So were you surprised when you eventually heard the banks that had been purchased and assumed by GCB Bank?
Well, I didn't know the two banks because I haven't.
That agreed, but
I haven't gone through their.
Yes, but when
their books.
When the names of the banks were, brought out by the Bank of
Yes.
Ghana, were you surprised at the banks that were involved?
I know UT was having some problems, which is in the public domain, but I didn't know anything about Capital Bank.
You knew of the problems, particularly also because you were with the Securities and Exchanges Commission, because UT is listed.
Yes, UT is listed, and these are information that is in the public that
put out by the Securities and Exchanges Commission.
No, it is the
Ghana Stock Exchange. Yes, you are the regulators. Yes.
2015, they have not been able to release the annual report, and that means that there were some issues with the bank.
So you knew they were having problems.
Not problems about the operation, because the SEC does not supervise their operations. The SEC's job is the relationship between the company and its shareholders, how it's treating shareholders, rights of shareholders, if shareholders require something, some information, if they must get their dividend, those things.
And the rights of shareholders include having reports?
Yes.
So why didn't you ensure they had their reports?
No, see, as I sit down here, I don't want to be speaking on behalf of the SEC.
At the time that you were there, because these are things that happen when you were there.
SEC is a job that continues. So if you want to find out more about that, then it is better you speak to the SEC. But what I'm saying is that is what the SEC does, making sure that investors, the relationship between investors and the issuers in terms of reporting, if they have to declare dividends, if they have to, any investor's right is protected, whereas the Bank of Ghana is the one that will supervise their day-to-day operation, whether they are giving loans that are good or bad, or whether their capital requirement is being met or not. Those are not what the SEC does.
Dr. Edu Antwi, you were Director General of SEC. At the time, from 2011, 2012 to 2016,
yes.
In 2015, the information put out is that UT Bank was not submitting reports. You say it's the right of investors, the shareholders, to have these reports. At the time you were there, this is when it happened. What did you do about it?
That's what I'm saying. The SEC is still there.
It's still there.
I want us
what
to.
Did you know,
I want us
we'll get
to
other issues,
leave.
but what did you do personally
what
about
the
it?
shareholder?
Since
not
you were in charge.
It's not you.
So what did the SEC,
What the
at the
SEC
time
and I'm
under
saying-
your tenure do?
I'm saying I don't want to respond for SEC. If the SEC Director General, I was still the Director General of the SEC, then I can speak to it. So the SEC is still there. If there's any need for you to get, but I can only speak to issues that are in the public, information that are in the public.
Yeah, these are issues that are in the public, and many
Yes.
blame the SEC because they think that
They
a lot
should
more
find
could
out
have
from
been
the
done.
SEC first before they blame.
We're finding out from
No,
you.
you can't find
You were
out
there
from
at the
me
time.
because I'm not the Director General now. The SEC is a going concern. It is still working, and it's not right for me to come here and say this is what SEC would do or did or that. The SEC, if I was the chief executive, the acts are the acts of the SEC. So for those points, I think
Why did the Ghana Stock Exchange suspend trading of UT Bank?
according to the notice that was issued, two things came out: the lack of submission of annual reports since the end of 2015. And you know, if you are a listed company, you should submit your report by the first quarter, end of the first quarter of the year. So let's say the 2015 report should have been submitted somewhere March ending or April. That was not submitted. And the 2016 one also was supposed to be submitted by March this year. That has not been submitted. So that was what the report said. And then the second thing was that the alliances has been withdrawn, and so the stock exchange was
The alliances had been withdrawn by
the governor, by the Bank of Ghana as a bank, and therefore the license has been revoked. That means you have withdrawn the alliances, and therefore they are suspending their listing.
Yeah, but the license was revoked recently.
Yes.
But somewhere in 2016 or so, there was a suspension of trading.
I think there was 1 day suspension.
Yes, 1 day suspension. That's what I want to find out.
I'm not too sure what made the stock exchange did that 1 day suspension, you know, to clarify things or to find out what was happening. But I think it was just a 1 day trading that was suspended.
Wasn't that as a result of certain issues? I mean, you are the regulator, and certainly you would know this thing. You were at the time in charge of the regulator, and so I'm
Yes.
sure you would know why, for instance, the Ghana Stock Exchange would say, we're suspending your trading for a day. What was the motive?
You see, they have their trading rules,
What are the rules?
listing rules. So I can't recall. all
So
the
for
rules.
instance, what would necessitate a 1 day suspension? What does it seek to achieve?
You see, if the SEC was the one that did it, we have rules that when we suspect that there is some irregularity in the trading, the regulator can say, stop trading. If pricing are falling so drastically, the regulator may step in and say, stop trading. And I think the stock exchange also, once they have their rules, if they see that you are breaching any of those rules, they have the right to let you suspend and come back. That is their own rules that they apply. Once it is in their rule book, they have the freedom to do that.
But you are the regulator of the stock exchange.
You don't tell them what to do since they have the rule.
They have their own rule. If you're not doing things right,
If they do it outside their rules,
you can correct them.
even that one, if they do it outside their rules, then the issuer who has been affected can now lodge a complaint with the SEC that the stock exchange treated me this way, and I think it is not in the rule book or it is against the rule, so I'm appealing against the sanction that has been meted out to me. Then the SEC will come in.
I believe you're aware of the comment, or the directive that came from the Bank of Ghana at the time when when trading was suspended, UT Bank's trading was suspended.
I don't recall exactly the directives, the statement.
You don't recall the directive?
Yeah,
you don't recall that the Bank of Ghana asked that they were doing something, they were trying
No, I'm saying the direct statement that was made.
But what did the Bank of Ghana say at the time?
As for the Bank of Ghana, they have already been saying that they are working with these banks. At that time, and UT in particular, because it's a listed company. They are
But were
working.
there other banks too?
No, I mean
on the
recently.
stock?
No,
Okay.
only UT. But I mean the report that came from the governor said that they are working with these 2 banks. So as for the Bank of Ghana, they have always been saying that they were working with these 2 banks to make sure that they can, restructure and make and start operation or continue their operation on some sound.
So
footings.
at that time, I just want clarification because we're finding out. I mean, we're trying to understand the issues. At that time, last year, when the trading of UT Bank was suspended, the Bank of Ghana got in there.
Yes.
What did they say?
That's what I'm saying. I don't remember the exact statement that was put. But
What
it
was
was to
the
say
input? I mean, what was
to
the-
that we are working with this bank to resolve issues. That's why.
So the Bank of Ghana then, put in a word
Yes.
for trading of UT shares to resume.
Yeah, because they are the primary regulators. If the company is going through some issues, and the regulator thinks that these are issues that we are handling, so give them time to resolve. The stock exchange will also have the rights to accept that intervention and move on.
There are those who blame the SEC, particularly
For-
under your tenure, because they say that as regulator of the Ghana Stock Exchange, when you realized things were not going well, for instance, the rights of shareholders not having reports, you could have probably pushed for more in one fine. I mean, a suspension of trading would have ensured, for instance, that the shareholders, their investments are safe for them. That thing wasn't done for them, and they believe.
You see, the banking resolution is not just. I don't work with the Bank of Ghana, so I can't talk so much about banking resolution. But resolution of any financial institution, it's not just you see and you stop, or you collapse it, or you issue statements that would, frighten the market, create panic, get investors to be withdrawing their monies here, left and right. So regulators go through some amount of trying to help these companies resolve the issues that they have. It's just like somebody who is sick. You want to let the person come back to health, life, and so you go through medication, do all that you can to make sure that the person can live. When it gets to the point that you realize that this cannot work, that is where you come in and stop some of these things. So, people should understand that there is, if you see even a problem, it's not just today you saw the problem and you come in to do things that will rather, create more worries in the financial market.
You felt if you had gone in that way, it would have created more risk?
Yes, that's from the Bank of Ghana's point of view. They, as I said, they are the primary regulators, and they
Exactly.
know what is right to be done. So if they say that if you did this to this bank, it will create this, I think the other market or whatever ought to listen to.
Yeah, but Dr. Edwentry, SEC is the regulators of the Ghana Stock Exchange.
Yes.
You have a responsibility to your shareholders
Yes.
in there.
Yes.
The Bank of Ghana has a responsibility to the depositors in
Yes.
there. So if the Bank of Ghana says, hold on 1 minute, we want to do this, and you, having responsibility to your shareholders, also realize that we need to protect our shareholders, whose do you take then? So everything the Bank of Ghana says when it comes to banks supersedes anything that you have to do as SEC or Ghana Stock Exchange?
No, I'm not. As I said, I'm not going to answer for SEC or Stock Exchange. But all that I'm saying that for regulatory, the regulatory functions or the regulatory activities of the regulators in the financial market, when it comes to a bank or a company, any company which working in the industry is suffering, the regulator has a duty to try and help that firm to succeed, to come back to life. And so you don't push that company away. And sometimes if you don't take care, what you do would affect the rest of the market. You want to make sure that even if one company is going to go down, it goes down without affecting the rest of the sector. And that's a difficult thing to do. How to do this, even information alone if information comes out that this is happening here, you know, the run of the bank will not be only on where the problem is. If I hear that this bank is suffering and people are going for their money in that bank, the bank which is not suffering is deposited will also rise there to go and take.
Okay.
So the Bank of Ghana, in its own wisdom, try to resolve these matters. And if you are a market and the regulator who is working on solving the problem appeals to you that, wait, we are trying to help this bank to come up, I don't think it is wrong for the market not to. We're wrong to accept the advice.
We'll come back and focus on the shareholders now, because they're asking questions. They want to know what would happen to their shares. This is Hot Issues, and my guest this afternoon is Dr. Edu Antwi, who is the former Director General of the Securities and Exchanges Commission. And I am Winston Amwa. Stay with us. We'll go for our final break. When we return after this break, we'll find out the fate of many of you shareholders. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, so welcome back from that short break, and thanks for staying with us. This is Hot Issues. I still have, Dr. Edu Antwi here with us. So, Dr. Edu Antwi, for you, as when you were at, SEC, you basically listened to what the Bank of Ghana said, and that influenced the decision of the stock exchange at the time. That's it?
Yes, the Bank of Ghana, because they are the primary regulators, and if they say that, we have allowed these people to do ABC in order to restructure themselves, then the market operators, that is the stock exchange which is operating, must agree to that, because you also don't want that company.
Those are the rules.
Yes,
or it's a convention.
Yes, if there is anything that is happening to a company and the primary regulator thinks that he is doing something, so allow them to, it's like, I'll take them out of the market. Then the primary regulator say, oh, please wait, we are trying to help resolve the issue so that they can continue to be on the market. And the market operators accept that.
It's interesting how this thing works, because now what happens to the shareholders of UT Bank?
No, you see, company liquidation, if there is laws that governs how companies are liquidated and what happens to shareholders when companies are liquidated. But first and foremost, this is a company which is limited by shares. And if they say a company is limited by share, the meaning is that shareholders' liability is limited to the amount that remains unpaid on their shares. So, for example, if the share was sold to you at 2 cedis, and then under the law, it's possible that they can let you pay installments. Shares can be paid in installments, but Ghana here, most of the time, is always payment in full. But you can have shares that are given to you and you are paying installment. So if the share is 2 cedis and you have paid, let's say 1 cedi 50 pesos, that means you owe 50 pesos on your shares. When the company is going into liquidation, you will be asked to bring that 50 pesos that you owe on the share. So the number of shares you owe times the 50 pesos that you owe on the shares will be calculated, and you are liable to bring that money to the company for the company to use to pay its debts. So that's why we call your shares limited by shares, a company limited by shares. Therefore, it means that if you have fully paid for your shares, you have no other liability to be called upon to meet when the company is going into liquidation. But mind you, your shares that you have, the value, the money that you have paid for your shares is only returnable to you when the company is going into liquidation, is winding up. It will be returned to you. But you are the last person, as an ordinary shareholder, you are the last person to receive the amount you have invested in the company. The creditors, if they are bondholders, they will be paid first, or other creditors will be paid first, and then you, the ordinary shareholder, you will also get, the last people that will be giving money is the ordinary shareholders. So whether you get something or not would depend upon the amount available to the company to pay creditors. And this amount will come from the sale of the assets of the company. So if the assets of the company realize something after the sale, realize you get so much from the sales, that is what we are going to use first to certify the creditors who are not owners of the company, because the creditors are not part of the company. You are the owner. You started the business. You have your money in the business, so you are the owner. The rest are people who just lend you money, so you have to pay back their money to them. Then the remainder of the proceeds that you get out of the sale of your assets will now be distributed to the shareholders. And as to whether you get the full value or the full amount you place in the company or not will depend on the proceeds of the shares and vis-a-vis the amount that the proceeds will be used to pay to creditors and other people who the company owe amount to.
So in this case, if there's some, I mean, after the sale of the company's assets,
yes,
if there's something left after the payment of creditors and everything, then the shareholders will get something. If there's nothing left?
If there's nothing left, you see, that is the essence of shareholding. As an ordinary shareholder, you are the last to receive the amount you have invested in the company. You are the last. So all other people will be paid. For example, if other people who are supposed to be paid can't be paid in full, then you, the ordinary shareholder, there is nothing that will come to you, because the people who have the first option or the first child, they are on the first list to be paid, have not been paid in full. So there is nothing left for you. But if the company's asset is able to realize something which is more than the liabilities they have to pay, then the rest will be shared to the shareholders. As to whether you get the full or not will depend on the proceeds and the liabilities that are supposed to be met.
So if a company, I mean, was going through distress, for instance, and then there was a suspension of its trading on the stock exchange, in that case, could the shareholders have gotten something?
It is, as for the trading, it is just a market for the trading.
If it's suspended,
yes,
and the company is not going into liquidation, in that case, the shareholders can still get something, isn't it?
No, it's only when the shares are going to be traded again, then you can trade your shares, and if there is any profit that you make, that is fine. But if the company is not going to be there,
some say they are sold over the counter to brokerage firms. They know how to do it.
No, you can sell when you see. This company is not operating now. So how can you be buying and selling its shares?
It's been suspended. Its trading is
I mean, it's not operating. Its license has been revoked.
No, I'm talking about if or when a company's trading is suspended.
Yes.
On the Ghana Stock Exchange. In that situation, what happens, or what would have happened to the shareholders?
If the company is still operating,
exactly,
then you could trade your shares over the counter.
Exactly.
Because the stock exchange is just a trading platform for you to come and trade. If you are not listed on the stock exchange, your shares will still be traded, but not on the exchange, but what we call the over-the-counter market. But what I'm saying that for UT now, the company is not operating.
That I agree.
And so you cannot go and trade the shares on. Who will buy shares of a company when the company
that I agree. I just wanted some clarification on the earlier suspension of trading and what that would have done for the shareholders. And and the many who think that would have been a better thing for them.
But let me also advise that the rules of the stock exchange, they should allow you to trade over the counter. When you are listed, you cannot at the same time be trading over the counter. But the exchange can allow you that as a result of this, when this Ashanti Goldfields was listed, and previously they were trading, the stock exchange was not trading every day, maybe 3 times a day. The stock exchange gave approval for the shares of that company to be traded over the counter, which means the day that the market is not open, you can still go to the brokers and the registrars to place your order, and then it will be reported when the exchange is opened. But now every share, every day there's
Every day
a
they
trading.
open.
So it means if you are listed and you want to also trade over the counter, you need the permission of the stock exchange before you can.
But
do
if your listing is suspended,
yes, if it's suspended,
you still need permission.
I have to, but it's suspended, and since you still abide by, I'm not too sure what will happen if it is suspended and they will allow you to trade for the time of suspension to trade. I don't think that will happen.
Well, my checks with some industry players say, well, that could have happened, and that's how come they blame, the SEC under your tenure for not doing that.
You see, I'm not too sure about that because
I don't know why you don't want to talk about what happened while you were there.
Suspension is different from delisting. If you are delisted, let me ask you, if you are attending a school and they suspend you, then you say, I'll go to classes in another school. No. But if you are dismissed from the school, then go and find another
so if
school.
you are delisted them.
They have not been delisted.
Yes, I'm saying there's people, those who argue
that they should have been delisted
at the time when they were having problems, when they were not submitting their reports. The SEC under your reign should have done that to them.
No, we don't. You see, let's get this.
The
Ghana Stock Exchange. And I'm saying that
delisted them.
when they did it, according to the information available, the primary regulator intervened, say that I'm trying to help solve this problem. If you did it this way, it will rather, damage what we are trying to resolve. So please. So that one is gone, and that is suspension. Or that I'm saying that if you have been delisted,
there are those who
then
are
you
pushing.
can go and sell.
The argument they make
they thought it should be delisted.
Even as a regulator,
yes.
The SEC as a regulator, when you realized the rights of the shareholders were not being met, should have pushed for sanctions.
You see, if you delist, there are still shareholders, and the SEC will still have a role to play.
Yeah, so
it is only a market, whether you were there or not.
They make the point that the SEC should have done this.
SEC don't delist.
You don't get me. Should have pushed the Ghana Stock Exchange to do so.
No, they can't do that.
You can't push them.
The Ghana Stock Exchange has its rules. It's only when it's not going by the rules that the SEC can say, this is your own rule, but you are not.
Were they going by the rules?
What I'm saying that if the primary regulator has intervened and they have waived.
But you have a responsibility to your shareholders too.
I'm not saying they don't have, but I'm saying that if we are solving a problem, you don't go and say, look, whatever it is the case, I'm sending them out of the market. You also want to protect the market. You want to protect investors. So if the primary regulator intervene, as we are all being told, that look, the way you are doing it, if you did it this way, it will rather endanger both depositors and also shareholders. So give us time to work with this bank to resolve those issues. And the market operator, which is in this case the stock exchange, accepts to allow that. I don't think people should fault them.
People should enforce them. Except that now the shareholders have to remain patient.
Yes, because whatever it is, no matter when a company goes into liquidation, whether it's 1 year or 2 years, it is the assets against liabilities.
Dr. Edwin Tree, thank you
very
much for joining us. We are very grateful.
Thank you.
All right, so that will be all from us this afternoon. I believe that for those of you who are shareholders and even those of you who are not, you have a better understanding, of this whole saga as a result of what you've heard from Dr. Edwin Tree this afternoon. My name is Winston. I'm on behalf of the team. Thank you very much for joining us, and make sure you make a date with us same time next week, and join me Monday morning on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7 from 5:55 to 10 a.m. Have a lovely week.